After the events at the Arklay Cabin, the party returns to Raccoon City. This is the story of Resident Roleplay so far.
Resident Evil Roleplay.
Beaten, worn, and tired, the party makes their way back to Raccoon City proper. Chauncey brings Mike's body to the hospital and has his death certified by the county coroner. In the lobby, they notice an unusual amount of sick people in need of treatment. After exchanging contact information, the survivors go their separate ways. Katara returns to her suburban house in search of her parents, but finds that no one is home. She does, however, find a voicemail awaiting her.
You have one unheard message.
Hey Katara, it's Crimson. Give me a call as soon as you're back in town. The executives have a big fat bonus waiting for us as soon as we turn in any recovered data from the cabin. And there's another bonus if you manage to snag any samples while you were there. Plus I need to do a security debriefing. Make sure there's no loose ends and all that. Anyway, like I said, let me know as soon as possible.
End of messages.
In trying to hydrate himself at a fountain, Emil discovers that something is now amiss with the city's water. Meanwhile, Arklay has the difficult task of explaining Mike's passing to his only son, Brandon. Later that evening, everyone hears from a news broadcast of a mass shooting at Raccoon University, orchestrated by a man in black tactical gear and a gas mask, much like that of an Umbrella Security Service operative. However, the victims were also USS, as well as other Umbrella personnel. Emil and Arklay spend the night at Chauncey's apartment. While there, Arklay plays a tape they found in the cabin facility.
It was a long day after fighting and testing. Aidan and I found ourselves in the mess hall eating dinner. I could hear snickering from across the table that we were sitting at. I would look up at Aidan, and then back at the people across the table. I could tell that Aidan was getting mad, and ever since Umbrella started injecting him, mad was never good. I pleaded with them to stop, for their own safety, but they only seemed to urge him on more.
I could feel my blood start to boil as they snickered at Yuko. I could see that she was getting uncomfortable with the whole situation. When the boy stood up and went to hit her, I got up and grabbed his arm in one quick motion. I started to see red, and knew before long that I wouldn't be in control. I could feel Yuko trying to stop me, but instead of listening to her, I did something I never thought I would. I hit her with my free hand. Inside, I couldn't believe what I had done, but it was short-lived. My focus quickly returned to the boy in my grip. In my current form, I could have easily snapped his arm in half. Instead, I just threw him through the nearest wall.
I laid on the floor where he had left me. Tears started to stream down my reddened cheek where he had slapped me. I know he didn't mean to, but it still hurt. I watched the boy fly through the air and winced as I saw his body collide with the wall and break through. I could hear him yelling in a feral voice. He was yelling at him to leave me alone. I got to my feet, then walked over to him and grabbed his arm and tried to make him look at me. When he did, I was almost scared stiff. His once handsome brown eyes were now blood red, and he seemed to look right through me. I had to get through to him. I just had to. I begged him to stop as I held on to him. I suddenly started to feel him let his body loosen. When Aidan looked at me the next time, I almost cried. His eyes were slowly turning back to brown, but instead of deep brown pools, they were dull. He muttered to me that he was sorry before he blacked out.
The next day, Arklay, Chauncey, and Emil head out to shop for gear at Kendo's gun shop. Meanwhile, Katara heads into a secret laboratory beneath her house, where she finds a cryptic note left by her parents, before locking herself away. Arklay, Chauncey, and Emil eventually reconvene at Raccoon General Hospital. At the request of Police Chief Brian Irons, Chauncey lies to the coroner about Mike's death.
It is what it is. The report is the way I recall it. The report was the way that everybody recalled it that was there. The official report is not going to state that. The official report is going to say that it was a bear mauling in the woods. But what would you believe?
I believe that a bear very well could have done this.
Okay, then. A bear did it.
You're a hard one to figure out. You started pointing quite a few fingers at Umbrella in this report of yours as well.
Yep. Yeah, you had to been there. It's how you situate the story. We went up to a cabin in the woods, and we got lost in the woods, and he got attacked by a bear. And my claims toward Umbrella are because of the recent events with Umbrella and the shooting.
Very well, then. That clears things up. So your fellow police have informed me that you're best suited to notify his next of kin. I trust you'll be doing that. Thank you for your time, Detective Clancy.
Shake his hand, and I leave the room.
Arklay and Emil, you both see Chauncey kind of storm out the swivel double doors and start heading back down the hall.
Not what I wanted.
No?
No. You know how it is. Story's far-fetched.
Red tape?
Our story is way too far-fetched.
Red tape?
Yep.
Yeah, I know what that's about.
On their way out, Arklay points out a violent patient being restrained by doctors in a nearby room. The survivors recognize this patient as a Crimson Head. After a gruesome and violent transformation, the Crimson Head becomes a monstrosity known as a Licker. Chauncey opens fire on the creature as it escapes out of the hospital corridors and flees into the streets. Looking outside, the party sees smoke rising over distant buildings. After seeing the Licker escape into the city, Chauncey immediately retracts his statements to the coroner. The party exits the hospital to find downtown Raccoon City in turmoil, as riots break out at a nearby sporting event. On the way to Chauncey's apartment, they are approached by our first guest character of the series. Doug Wellman, played by Sayers of Panda Force Ultra, is a gun-toting survivalist and prepper looking to escape the chaos of the riots.
I'm Doug.
Doug.
Yeah.
Doug?
Yeah, Doug Wellman.
Oh, Doug Wellman.
I own
Great.
my
Got a
family
name.
shop is the Wellman garage in Center City. Do you know it?
Must be really discreet because it's not ringing any bells.
Things have not been going well for a while. Let's just say that. Clientele's changed a little bit.
Cautiously giving him a ride, the party discovers that he is trying to reunite with his family, who had gone to take refuge at a cabin in the Arklay Mountains. Arriving at the apartment complex, they convince Brandon Foster to leave his home and come with them away to safety. Meanwhile, Chauncey catches looters in the act of stealing his vintage firearms collection. He scares them off, but the thieves get away with their prize. Saddened, Chauncey retrieves the one item they failed to find, a Colt AR-15, which he keeps in a case under his bed. The survivors then head to the suburbs, where Emil gives Jack's custom M1911 to his widow, Maria Carmine, while informing her of her husband's fate. Meanwhile, in the household next door, the rest of the party discovers that the children of Arklay's former adopted family have all transformed into zombies and had cornered their mother Lena in the bathroom. With the party's help, she manages to escape. After informing these friends of the present situation, the party sends Maria, Lena, and Brandon on their way out of the city in a separate vehicle. Afterwards, the party goes to the Oswald household in search of Katara, but she is nowhere to be found. After solving a cryptic puzzle involving a bookshelf and a series of paintings depicting the story of Cain and Abel, they discover a secret elevator that brings them deep underground into a laboratory where they find Katara hiding. Now reunited with their scientist companion, Emil brings her up to speed and delivers a sample of the city's water for her to confirm his suspicions that it's contaminated. After musing that she requires a raw T-virus sample for comparison, Chauncey realizes that he inadvertently took one from the cabin facility. He provides it to her for her trials, after which Katara settles in to begin her experiments, while the rest of the party returns to the surface. The survivors drive out to the Arklay Mountains in search of Doug's cabin. They arrive in the forest in the dead of night, and after some travel on foot, they eventually reach the cabin, just in time to hear a scream coming from within. Rushing inside, they find Doug's wife and son under attack by a pack of zombie dogs and infected monkeys, or eliminators. After the battle, the Wellman family is united, and for the party's efforts, they are allowed to rest there overnight. As the party beds down for the evening, Arklay has a brief conversation with Emil, during which she plays another cassette tape.
The sickness has stopped, thank God. But now I'm just tired all the time. I'm starting to show some, not that same old tiny frame anymore. I guess this is what happens when you have something growing inside of you. As far as I know, the doctors say the baby is okay, but I still worry. I know I said I didn't want one like this, but you quickly learn once the baby starts growing that you must protect it no matter what. And that is what I plan to do. I will never stop fighting for the baby that grows within me. It may not be how I planned it, but that doesn't make me any less its mother. Watch and see what happens when Umbrella or my father tries to take it away from me. I will fight for the baby as I have for the one I love so many times before. I pray that someday, Aidan, you will meet this child and be able to love it as I have.
Afterwards, they settle down to sleep, but this rest doesn't come easy for Emil.
Emil, as you drift off to sleep, you find yourself floating in an empty void. Eventually, your feet, clad in combat boots, land on concrete floors. You are sweating profusely in the kind of heat that could only be found south of the equator. Your body is heavy with armor, and you grip a rifle with both hands. You are in a dark corridor. Outside the corridor, you hear frantic footsteps and hushed voices murmuring in what sounds like Spanish.
Damn it. All right, I'm hunkering down and moving along one of the walls.
All right, so you start moving along the wall, crouching down low, trying to move carefully. You eventually round the corner and see there a familiar face, also in combat gear, of Jack Carmine. He's just like, oh, what you doing here, Johansson?
Jack.
Why'd you leave?
What happened? What's going on?
Why'd you leave, Johansson? And then in that instance, you see a looming shadow behind him as monstrous claws impale through the front of his chest and begin lifting him off the ground. His arms go wide as he screams in pain. Flashing lights enter the corridor from seemingly nowhere. The sound of constant barrage of gunfire echoes between your ears until suddenly you wake. Your breath is quickened, but your body is still.
Come morning, the party leaves Arklay behind in the safety of the cabin and departs back for the city. Upon regrouping with Katara at her house, she confirms that the T-virus is in fact in the city's water supply, and informs them that her laboratory has been quarantined after she accidentally spilled the raw virus sample. Chauncey is furious that they lost the one piece of hard evidence he had against Umbrella, but Katara assures him that more virus samples can be acquired at Umbrella's underground laboratory. The party doubles back to pick up Arklay in the forest, who had sustained some injuries after walking blindly into Doug's bear-trap defenses. But with the party now completely reunited, they make their way to the inner-city Umbrella pharmacy. Upon arrival, they find a horde of zombies banging at the doors. They make short work of these zombies, with Chauncey ramming a few of them with his Hummer. With the threat clear, they enter the pharmacy, where they find another survivor barricaded inside. Kevin Larson is a young engineer and our second guest character, played by friend of the show Troy. Kevin explains that he came to the pharmacy in search of his father Vincent, who is a private contractor working for Umbrella.
Do you know where Vincent Larson is?
Vincent Larson? Oh. I do know the name. I don't know where Vincent is, though. Vincent was really close with my parents, actually.
Wait, out of game. What?
No, I can say that's a fair.
No, that's pretty in game.
That sounds in character to me.
Okay, in game. Wait, what?
Yeah, I'm here to also look for my parents.
Everyone's looking for their family, apparently.
Yeah.
Umbrella's roots reach. Me neither.
With their new ally, the party descends underground via elevator. There, Emil cooks up some herbal tea to use their remaining yellow herbs, after which they take a cable car to one of the lower levels of the Nest labs. The power in the labs seems to be offline, rendering all of the electronic locks inaccessible. Passing some locked rooms, they avoid a few zombies and take a ladder, which exits to a security room with a number of monitors along the wall. Searching the immediate area, they battle a horde of zombies and a licker, all of which they manage to defeat. As the survivors continue exploring the facility, they fight through some more monsters and find another cassette tape.
Aidan, it's been 2 years since you left, and all I can think about is what they've done to you and what they are about to do to me. Now that I'm 18, they want to use me as a living experiment. Aidan, without you here, I am scared. But when I heard of what they planned to do to me, I guess they had to get rid of you, really. They want to make a baby with our DNA. I don't understand why we are so special. What did we do? I am confused. Is it because we didn't turn when they held us down and injected us with the virus? Are they hoping that the baby will somehow be immune to it? If I am to have this baby, which, if they demand it, I will have this baby, I have failed from the start. She or he will never have a normal life. It will grow up like we did, but from birth, no sense of what normal is. What kind of life is that, huh? It will suffer through life as we did, being poked and prodded at for the gift it possesses. How is that fair? The more and more that I wait for you to come back, the more and more I wonder if you haven't died out on the field somewhere. I may someday forgive them what they are about to do to me, but what they did to you is unforgivable. Aidan, if you have died in the line of duty, know that I will stop at nothing to avenge your death. And if you have somehow managed to live through it, know that I will stop at nothing to find you. I promise I will talk to you soon. Love you with all my heart.
Elsewhere in the facility, they also encounter a soldier by the name of Justin Scalvo, who is on a classified mission from the US Army. After a tense confrontation, they manage to defuse the situation and ally themselves with Scalvo, who joins them for their journey. Traveling to a lower floor, Kevin uses his engineering expertise to restore power with the help of the party. Making their way down to the labs, they battle a horde of zombies while Arklay breaks off from the group and attempts to go through a door. However, in doing so, she triggers some sort of booby trap, which blows up in her face. After clearing the area, they help Arklay to recover and find that the man who placed the trap was Vincent Larson, Kevin's father. He reveals that Katara's parents are whistleblowers who have been leaking Umbrella's secrets to the government for decades. Vincent had gotten caught up in their scheme and, upon being found out by Umbrella, helped them to orchestrate an escape by causing a bioweapons outbreak in the labs and getting extracted by the US Army. Corporal Scalvo reveals that part of his classified mission is to rescue these defectors. Vincent also reveals that he and the Oswalds are being hunted.
Umbrella apparently still had some remote access. They loosed Artemis and, well, quite frankly, David and Alicia, they were brave enough to make a run for it. I don't know what became of them. They got out of here. I was a coward. I couldn't do the same. I just stayed, barricaded myself in a room, set up a trap in case anything came for me. I couldn't leave this place not knowing it was out there.
You said Artemis?
Artemis, that's a long story. That's cutting edge BOW tech, some of the best the underground laboratory has produced.
Is that still here?
I don't know where it is. All I know is that it's not in its containment, which leads me to believe as soon as Umbrella realized what we were doing, they must have released it remotely. Tensions begin to rise when Katara finds the only remaining T-virus sample and begins using the laboratory to modify it.
There's something I've been wanting to do with this virus since I started working here.
And
I have been going behind Umbrella's back with this, in a sense. I'm taking the virus for my own needs. And this is to improve the human condition. There's so much more with this virus that we can do. Umbrella wasn't doing it right, and I wanted to test it on myself.
That sounds like an awfully risky affair.
Yes, but I already have a formula made. But it's not good enough. I need this. The reason the other sample is gone is because I dropped it, everything spilled out. There wasn't enough left to salvage to use for evidence. With everything going on here, this could be enough, and then the other can be salvageable for evidence.
A virus that can reanimate the dead shouldn't be used as a weapon, in my opinion.
Yes, but there's so much that could happen with this.
I'm with you. I'm on your side. I'm saying this technology shouldn't be weaponized. This is, for all intents and purposes, some sort of miracle virus.
That's what I mean. That's exactly what I want with the virus. It's able to do so much more than be a weapon. You think about the things that could happen with this.
Chauncey, seeking a raw sample to use as evidence, is outraged by this and makes an attempt to rend it from her. Chauncey wrestles the vial out of your hands.
Hey, careful with that!
And just at that moment, this Crimson Head comes bolting into the room and makes a claw attack at the corporal.
I saw that guy. I freaking saw that guy. I
need this evidence!
This evidence would be used.
Everybody stay in this room!
Yeah, you're looking at it now. You're realizing there's nothing in this.
I smashed it on the ground.
What are you doing? I'm gonna run out here.
I said I wanted evidence. There's no evidence in this empty vial.
You see a lot of steam starting to build up in this room.
I'll push through you.
I will hit him.
Push through.
I'm gonna grapple him.
Grapple checks.
Grapple him. So yeah, he's passing me then. Damn it, Chauncey!
I knew she was lying to us. She wasn't gonna give me any evidence.
She didn't lie. She told you exactly what she was going to do, and she did it.
She said the size of something, but she didn't give me any evidence. That vial.
She's making more of it, you idiot!
No, she's not. She's making.
She's making more of it, you idiot! Now you've gone and killed us all.
The remaining party fights the Crimson Heads in the lab. After defeating them, Emil explores the area and finds a computer with an email chain, in which Grimson warns a scientist named Calvin that something called the Beast is coming for him. They also find journals written by Elliot Walker regarding his creation, Artemis. All the while, Katara continues her experiment and, with some medical insight from Emil, makes breakthrough modifications that she believes will allow one to infect themselves without becoming a zombie. Shortly thereafter, Katara volunteers to be the first test subject for this new formula.
If something happens to me and I change into one of those, obviously, you know what to do.
Whoa. Wait, like now?
Yes.
Well, if you're gonna do this, I think I, as your medical doctor, should be the one to apply it to you.
Alright. She's got herself all ready.
Alright, so if we're gonna do this, I'm pulling out my medical kit. I'm gonna I'm gonna sterilize her, the area. I'm gonna get it all ready. I'm gonna get a needle, then a syringe.
I have nothing to lose. I came into
You
this.
still have your life, both of you.
Hey, listen.
What kind of life is it? I have no one to go back to. I have no parents. I have no friends. I have no one.
Well, that's the whole point of life, isn't it? You lose and you gain more friends.
I'm 10.
That's just what happens. Listen, kid, you're 10. Next year, you're going to be 12. Next year after that, you're going to be 14.
Honey.
Very quickly, you're going to grow up and you're going to realize that life is about loss and gain.
And,
Why inject a scientist? Why inject somebody that has the knowledge?
Archaea, listen to me. What Katara does is up to her. What you do is up to you. what we need to do right now is figure out what's best for everybody right now. And I personally think that we should wait. But if she's made her choice, I will do everything I can to make it a safe choice.
After some debate and writing of wills, everyone eventually agrees to let this happen.
Put it nice and slow.
You feel the sting of the syringe as it punctures your skin, and you feel the flow of something entering your bloodstream. And after a moment, there's nothing out of the ordinary. But then you wait, and after another moment, you just kind of you feel different, and all of a sudden your back kind of shoots back, and you just kind of collapse to the floor, just limply. You feel an excruciating burning sensation just beneath your skin. If you weren't so immobilized, you'd be clawing at your arms trying to dig out whatever intrusion is causing such pain. And even so, the rest of you see her writhing in place on the floor. Veins begin to darken in a wave up to her neck. You see her eyes glaring widely back up at all of you, those haunting green eyes standing out so much more than usual. Or at least you guys... Yeah. Or at least you guys, you remember them being green beforehand, but you're not sure if your own eyes deceive you, but in this moment they look significantly less so. And after a few moments it becomes clear that her once green irises are now two infernal beads fixed in her skull, glowing bright red. Katara, your vision gradually grows a warm filter over it as the virus continues to course painfully through your veins. It's the same sudden sting that flows through you whenever a zombie sinks its teeth in, only multiplied and unending. And just when you think you can't take any more of it, an image comes to mind. Your parents, who you believe are out there somewhere, who you want to see again one day. Then you think of the world outside, and however arrogant, you remember the dream you had of being the one to better it with the gifted intellect that you, of all people, were born with. Is there anything else Katara sees?
She sees the crew.
The party?
The group. Yep.
Oh.
And as you remember,
Party.
as you remember these people with whom you've walked, you cling tightly to these thoughts, and before you even realized it, the pain has already begun to subside. The rest of you see the glow in her eyes disappear, which you hadn't realized were providing a new source of light in this relatively dim room until they fade away and your surroundings grow slightly darker down in that area. You also see her dark veins returning to a more lively color.
Meanwhile, Chauncey runs back to the security room, where he feels a rumbling in the walls. Crashing through the ceiling is a giant worm, the Grave Digger. It attacks Chauncey, and he is forced to retreat. He makes his way to the chemical storage hall, where he fights both hunters and the Grave Digger, which burrows in and out of the walls. Thanks to the luck of the rolls and the monsters fighting among themselves, Chauncey manages to escape with his life, shortly before reuniting with the party. Making peace after the previous fiasco, Chauncey and Emil double back for the keycard in the chemical storage hall. On their way out, they unlock the security room, gaining a plethora of new weapons and gear, before leaving the facility and narrowly escaping in the cable car, as the Grave Digger gives chase. The survivors stumble back out onto the zombie-infested streets. Suddenly, Kevin's father Vincent is impaled against the wall by an organic, bone-like projectile. The monster responsible is seen briefly, but disappears into the shadows of an alley. This figure they assume to be Artemis. Scalvo then informs everyone that an army evac chopper will be touching down at City Hall on September 28th, and that if Katara's parents are still alive, they'll likely be headed there. He then parts ways with the survivors, escorting Kevin away in a hot-wired car. After parting ways, the survivors get back on the road in Chauncey's Hummer. On the radio, they hear a distress signal broadcast from a group of survivors at Raccoon University. However, over Chauncey's police scanner, they also hear the RPD calling all units to return to the station. The party ultimately makes their way for the ladder and sleeps in the station's garage overnight. But it's another uneasy rest for Emil once again. There is no empty void this time around. As soon as your eyes roll back, the darkness just takes you immediately and drops you off a roof. You fall what feels like several stories before landing boots first in another dark hallway. You're again clad in armor with a rifle in hand. The surrounding walls are riddled with bullet holes. The body of a boy dressed in shoddy clothes, gripping an AK-47, looks to be no more than 18 years of age, lies in a puddle of blood at your feet. After observing this for a little bit, you're not sure if you just hadn't noticed him or if he just now suddenly appeared, but you hear a familiar voice. You did what you had to do, Emil. Ain't no shame in that. You recognize this voice as Scott Muller.
Yeah, well, we just need to keep moving. We need to protect everybody.
Yeah, you don't say.
Can't stop to think about it.
Speaking of protecting everyone, whereabouts is Carmine in all this?
Do I think I know where Carmine is?
The more you think about it, the more you think you might know where he is, but then as soon as you think deeply about it, you're suddenly gripped by something. You turn to see your assailant, and it's a bloodied, decayed, undead Jack Carmine snarling in your face before suddenly...
No!
Your eyes open. Your blood pumps fast, but your body is still. The survivors then make their way to the operations room, which the surviving police force seems to be using as a foxhole. They find the remaining cops divided, with some seeking to escape the city and others still hoping to retake it. Marvin Branagh and David Ford seem to have risen as leader figures, with different officers siding with one or the other. However, both sides agree that they need to seize the firearms which Chief Irons has scattered throughout the precinct. Eager to acquire new weapons of their own, the party accepts the task and goes about the station searching for Officer Roy, who holds the card to the armory. However, Arklay stays behind in the operations room and hands Emil a letter that she's written, along with her butterfly pendant. Accompanied by a policewoman named Officer Wyatt, they find and rescue Officer Roy from a horde of zombies, before escorting him down into the basement. There, a wound in his shoulder splits open, killing him and releasing a small creature that quickly scurries away into a vent. They then secure new gear from the armory, at which point Emil opens and reads Arklay's letter. Flustered by its contents, he bolts out of the room, screaming for Arklay, but is cut off by the now matured creature that exited Roy's wound. After battling and defeating the G-Adult, they make their way back to the operations room, only to notice Arklay is missing. She left behind only her tape recorder with a message proclaiming her desire to search for her adopted family on her own. After delivering some of the recovered resources to the police, they leave the operations room, with Chauncey rebuking the division among his former comrades. On their way out of the station, one of the officers provokes Chauncey by blaming him for Mike's death. Chauncey tries to punch him, but misses and is held back by the other officers. He walks away even more aggravated with his fellow police than before. On the way out, the survivors hear the scream of a young girl. Emil and Katara investigate, only to find a massive, dog-like creature that Emil recognizes from the description of Artemis. The creature stands on its hind legs and launches a spiked projectile from its forepaws, which pierces Emil's shoulder. The girl disappears off into an alley, after which Emil and Katara escape in Chauncey's Hummer. From there, they travel to the Raccoon University campus in search of survivors, supplies, and a friend of Chauncey. Due to obstructions in the road, they park the Hummer 3 miles away and go the remaining distance on foot. Upon arrival, they find Chauncey's friend taking shelter in a nearby building. Lisa's second character is an RPD officer named Allie Gold. She is accompanied by her idealistic but skilled rookie partner, Ed Willis. Together, they skirt around the university's administration building and gradually clear the central courtyard of the zombie horde roaming throughout it. After Katara lights a fire to burn the remaining bodies, they make their way towards the Fitzgerald Center at the north side of the campus. After entering the Fitzgerald Center, the party explores one of Umbrella's laboratories in the building, where they see shattered test tubes from which they presume BOWs have escaped. They also find another cassette tape.
This morning, I was woken by the worst pain I think I've ever had in my life. I cried and screamed, This had to be what labor felt like. I wished she could have always been inside of me, where she was safe. But in reality, I knew this day would come. A guard must have heard me because they came awful fast with a doctor I trusted. His name was Raphael Simmons. He had been my doctor since I got here back when I was young. Once he saw me, I could see that he had the look of wanting to flee. He always wanted to protect me, and I could tell this was killing him.
They later cross paths with our third guest character. Nuria Abdelnour is a university student and a pupil of Katara's. Nuria escorts the party back to a classroom, taking out the infected along the way. In the class, they meet the band of survivors that had been broadcasting the SOS over the radio. There, they are introduced to some of the other survivors, including a biker named Elza, and their loosely appointed leader figure, Dr. Sean Lennox.
Out of character real quick, is that the OG, like, unused Resident Evil 2 character? Like,
well, as you guys walk in, she kind of pipes up, she sees Nuria and kind of pats her on the shoulder, just like, good to see you made it back safe. Who are all these guys?
These were the guys in the court.
Oh, well, that's actually a lot more people than I was expecting. Nice to meet you all. I'm Elza. I'm a student here.
Was that Katara or is that Melchiah?
I think that's all Melchiah.
That's all me. Sorry.
This gentleman walks forward. He's like, well, nice to meet you and nice to see that you're friendly. Perhaps I should introduce myself. I'm Dr. Sean Lennox.
Sean is a professor from Oxford University who was in town for a debate with Umbrella researcher Elliot Walker in order to promote his new book on ethics and science. However, his opponent never showed, and Sean has been trapped there with the university students ever since. They also learned that the two survivors tasked with broadcasting the SOS have been missing since that morning. With this in mind, they set out to explore the rest of the campus, keeping an eye out for the missing students as well as gems that will allow them entry into the main Umbrella laboratory. Within the Fitzgerald Center, they are met with a plant-like tentacle that comes out of the vents and attacks without warning, presumably a small part of a larger creature. At the broadcast and recording studio, they find one of the students dead, and the blood trail of another seriously injured. They find reason to believe that the students were attacked by something large, which left a massive hole in the side of the building. Emil follows the blood trail, which leads them in the direction of the residence hall. Exploring the dorms, the party finds the other student, gravely injured and locked in his room. Shortly thereafter, they encounter the creature that has been chasing him. It's a massive, trench-coated figure, a Model T-103 Tyrant. After a long battle in the courtyard, they manage to overcome this tyrant. But, as she has made a habit of doing with the zombies, Katara attempts to burn the tyrant's corpse. However, the fire only seems to break the bonds restraining its metallic jacket. Returning to the Fitzgerald Center, they run into a USS operative going by the moniker Moonlight, who is searching for Katara and her parents. The party intervenes, forming a protective barrier around their friend, as they scrutinize this USS agent.
Alright, I see how it is. You think the US Army has its hands clean in all this? Dr. Oswald, you know Umbrella has been in the business of bioweapons for decades. Programs like that don't get funded without a market. The US Army has been Umbrella's biggest customer for a long time.
I don't know what to believe.
Look, just ask your friend Dr. Oswald here. She can tell you all about stuff like Operation Greenhouse and just crap like that that has been going on over the past few decades.
Wait. Operation what now?
Yes, I know what Operation Greenhouse was. All of these things happening. It's getting to me.
Oh, you sure picked a bad time to get cold feet, Katara.
So yeah, you found me. Now you're looking for my parents.
Oh, just can we just back up really quick? Like Ali said, what is that Operation Greenhouse? What's the deal with that?
In the mid-70s, there was a project between Umbrella and the U.S. Army in Argentina. It was used to conduct herbicide research. The program ended. I'm not sure why it ended, but I was given access to basically the unfinished data, which helped me to create VJolt.
What's that?
A powerful herbicide.
Realizing he's not welcome, Moonlight leaves them alone, but not before Katara takes him aside to confide the location of her parents to him. After he leaves, Katara notices that the cabin facility data, which she has been carrying on a thumb drive, is no longer in her pocket. Later, Chauncey and Allie have a discussion in which Allie reveals details about her dark history with Umbrella, and how she was captured and experimented on years ago. Meanwhile, Emil and Katara meet privately in a classroom.
What do you know about Operation Greenhouse?
Well, it was as I stated. I don't know why they shut down.
So you have no idea what happened at Operation Greenhouse?
I don't know what happened.
Where did you get your information from? Did Umbrella tell you?
I was given access to the unfinished data.
So Umbrella has no idea what happened?
Someone knows, whether it's Umbrella or the U.S. Army, but the program ended abruptly. I don't know why.
You can never tell anybody what I'm going to tell you right now.
All right.
I was a part of Operation Greenhouse.
What?
When I was deployed, I was sent to, I didn't know where, somewhere in South America. It was hot, it was humid. I was sent as an assistant physician assisting the oversight of some of the troops. What I was told as a part of the U.S. Army was that we were going to we're trying to find some sort of alternative to Agent Orange used in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And we were developing a clean, weaponized herbicide that did not harm our troops. So my job was to monitor the troops and report any side effects and whatnot to my superior.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yes, so we were... You can see him just start to hold his hand and his head in his hands. Like, it's clearly like painful thinking about this. We did have access to some of Umbrella scientists. This is the first time I'd ever heard of Umbrella. They brought their formulas and they helped with our research, but they never actually stayed at the facility. One day, and I'm starting to think this is not coincidence, when your Umbrella scientists were not there, we were raided by a group of guerrilla militia who should not have known where we were. They killed everybody in that base, except for me, Jack Carmine, and 2 others. And we were the last ones to get out of there alive.
Oh my god. I'm just starting to like visibly shake.
So is Emil. He's having a hard time standing. He's gonna grab that chair and sit down.
She's gonna like put her back up against the wall and just slide down.
I've been holding the secret for several decades now. There was several dozen, if not 100 people working at that facility, and they're all dead. That is hard to cover up.
So you're saying that this might be they might be going after the U.S. Army or after my parents to kill them, or do you think the U.S. Army is going to kill them, or Umbrella?
I think the U.S. Army and Umbrella probably aren't on speaking terms. I don't think the U.S. Army wants anything to do with those weapons. Nearly everybody was wiped out. A force that was unreal. There is no way that those militiamen would have known where we were with that amount of preparation.
She's like tearing up now. I might have just killed my parents.
Did you tell him where your parents were?
She just like looks up at you, like tears rolling down her cheeks. She's... City Hall. He doesn't know when they're leaving, but he knows that my parents are over there.
Hopefully your parents won't be going there anytime soon. We have to get there before both of them do.
I didn't know who to trust. What have I done?
While exploring the campus, the party sees out a window a 4-legged jackal creature roaming across the street before disappearing out of view. Artemis is still on the prowl. Resolving to destroy the plant whose tentacles terrorize the halls of the Fitzgerald Center, the party decides to sleep there overnight, stuffed in the same classroom that the university's survivors have made camp in. However, rest comes uneasily for some. You drift slowly through the void before landing feet first on the hard floors of the halls that you keep revisiting. This hall is long and rather dimly lit. Looking either way, you see to one end it seems to extend infinitely into darkness, and to the other end it ends abruptly at a singular metal door with dings and scratches and patches of rust all over it. You can hear the muffled sounds of kind of distant gunfire on the other side of that door. At this point, you kind of notice beside you this rather beefy Latino gentleman in his early 20s with a buzz cut hair, wearing a jungle camo tactical vest. He's got this incredibly toned, dark, muscular arms, bare at his sides, clutching an M16. Of course, you recognize this man as Private First Class Edward Lopez.
Lopez.
Kind of looks at you and he's like, huh? ¿Qué onda ese?
I don't speak Spanish.
I know, I just like to mess with you sometime. You sure this is where you want to be, Emil?
I don't know anymore, Lopez.
Well, you know, you can't just keep wandering around. You got to go somewhere, you know?
Yeah, well, going somewhere got me here, didn't it?
But where is here anyway?
Do I have a weapon?
Do you envision yourself with a weapon?
I do now.
Yeah, suddenly this a similar sort of rifle just apparates in your hand. Yeah.
Sometimes we gotta do what you gotta do. Sometimes I feel like we're built to do some stuff even though we feel like it's not for us.
Yeah, I hear you there, S.A.
As fate would have it, turns out I'm good at this, I guess. And I'm gonna start walking towards the door.
Okay. So, as you walk forward, approaching the door, you eventually get up right in front of it, and as you reach for the scarred door and grip the handle, a buzzing sensation begins to flow through you. It's foreign and shocking at first, but eventually it settles. The sensation is a panic and an excitement and a fear and a comfort and a rage and contentment all at once. It's the same roller coaster of instincts that you experience in the midst of a firefight. As you open the door, a blinding white light shines through. The sound of gunfire is no longer muffled as you pass into the brightness. And as you wake, you see that little bit of rays of sunshine coming in through the small window slits in the doors of this science classroom. Come morning, Katara notices that even with the lights off, she can still see plain as day. Her infection seems to be developing new abilities. They then continue exploring the campus. While searching, they notice that the tyrant's body is no longer where they left it, save for its trench coat. On the Fitzgerald Center's 3rd floor, they find some necessary items, but are ambushed by lickers which crash through the windows. However, Nuria freezes them with a cryo spray, after which Chauncey and Emil heave their frozen bodies out the windows, sending them shattering across the ground below. In exploring these other floors and gathering items, they eventually gain entry to the Umbrella Laboratory, in which they find new gear, including a hypo gun taken by Emil, and a finished V-Jolt product. However, they also find a video recording that shows what happened on the day of the school shooting. On the footage, they see a man in a USS uniform gunning down guards and scientists, before violently interrogating one of them.
Alright, is this thing on? Oh, okay, awesome. Experiment log number 1. I am senior researcher Dr. Daniel Calvin. I'm joined by my assistant researcher, undergraduate John Campbell. The purpose of this experiment is to document the effects of... Come on, someone get the lights back on. Ugh.
Over there, half staff. Open fire. I think we got him.
No. You're him. You're the beast.
Elliot Walker, Albert Wesker, Raphael Simmons, James Grimson, Nora Lennon.
No. Please don't hurt me.
Where are they?
I don't know. Some of those people aren't even alive anymore. Okay. Dr. Lennon, she was transferred to Rockford Island 2 months ago. But please, that's all I know. I'll do anything. Just tell me what you want.
I want my family back. If you're watching this, Dr. Lennon, you're next.
The figure removes his gas mask as he speaks those final words directly into the camera. His face they recognize from a certain photo and a certain pendant as Arkaya's father, Aidan. But then, just as Chauncey attempts to leave the room, he is greeted at the door by a pack of hunters. The party battles the hunters, one of which seems more aquatic than the others. This Gamma hunter begins to swallow Chauncey, but is killed in the process. After the fight, they bring the Vigil herbicide to the lecture hall, where the giant plant creature hangs from the ceiling. They splash the Vigilt onto it, dealing great damage before engaging in a fight. With its many tentacles, the party gets severely hurt, but in the end, Katara finishes it off with her grenade launcher. After a rest in which they tend to their wounds, and Sean helps to cure a few of them of the poison from the plant spores, they say their goodbyes to the university survivors, including Nuria, and begin making their way out of the campus in search of Katara's parents. The survivors leave Raccoon University and make their way back to the Hummer. There they notice that the viral sample, which was Katara's first failed attempt at experimenting on the virus, which Chauncey had also kept as evidence, has been stolen. In its place is a note which reads, "Sorry, Oswald, nothing personal. Signed, M." Seemingly from the USS Agent Moonlight. With this and the danger to Katara's parents, the party rushes to City Hall. They park the Hummer nearby and make the rest of the journey on foot. However, they don't make it far before Emil notices a red laser dot. He jumps in front of a bullet intended for Chauncey as the party gets into cover, pinned down by sniper fire.
Oh no.
Katara!
Oh, shit.
You haven't done anything we can't forgive. Even your new friends can walk free. We have what we need, just walk away from this.
Katara realizes that they are being ambushed by the elite USS squad known as Echo Team. They then take a moment to consider Grimson's ultimatum.
Quickly, Katara, how many did you say there were?
And there's 3 of them. At least
There's
I
4 of
know.
us.
Well, yeah.
There's at least one right now looking at Allie. We can make a run for it.
I don't want to put the rest of you in danger.
We're already in danger. We're leaving now, or we're helping your family. You live or they live.
But even if we try to save them, we're gonna die. And it's gonna be my fault. They wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me.
Chauncey, do you think you could provide covering fire?
I've got all the fire you need.
She is actually beginning to cry.
Katara.
What?
You need to make a decision right now.
Raph, really quick.
I'm gonna help you.
Ultimately, they spring into action and engage Echo Team. They encounter the scout Moonlight, the sniper Red Falcon, and their leader, James Grimson. In the epic firefight that follows, Chauncey, Emil, and Katara make their way to the rooftop to battle Grimson and Red Falcon, while Allie remains at the ground level and fights with Moonlight. Chauncey finishes Red Falcon off by throwing her from the rooftop. Paint me a picture right quick. How does this go down?
I'm just gonna.
It goes down, Raph.
Straight up, like a lineman in a football team. I'm gonna hit those pads and shove her ass up off the edge of the roof. and then wave as she falls. Like, bye.
The 3-story fall. So we're gonna say,
pow.
And that was the exact amount of hit points she had left. So you just shove her off the edge. She again trips over, falls head over heels, just spinning throughout the air before landing head first, denting the hood of the car, and before the rest of her body collapses limp and just in a splatter of blood all across the windshield.
Yes!
The Red Falcon is no more.
I want to see if the Falcon can fly.
Chauncey just turns around and just like...
Thanks in part to some bad rolls, Ali manages to outmaneuver Moonlight, forcing him to retreat. However, he is killed and eaten by zombies on his way back. Seeing the battle falling out of his favor, Grimson attempts to escape. Chauncey leaps from the rooftop to intercept him, but smacks against a streetlight on the way down and lands on the street, dying. Ali manages to heal him back to consciousness and give him a kiss, just in time for him to meet Grimson at the door. Suppose he only gets as far as the door. Chauncey, how do you want to do this?
Oh no!
I'm just, as soon as he opens up the door, it says, "Surprise, motherfucker," and stab him in the face.
So, as soon as you see that door swing open, you're just sitting there, arm at your side, holding a bloodied wound shut. You are just not in the best of condition. As soon as you hear that door swing open, you swing around, just Rambo style, breathe your one-liner, and just shove your knife under the jaw, into the jugular, and then just like rip it out. His vocal cords come in with it as a splatter of blood just pours out over your vest, and it's just like
can he like move up a little bit?
Yeah, can you?
he stumbles.
And I just
Chauncey, you have a hold of him right now. You can do what you like as his
pull the knife and kind of like toss him out in the middle of the street, not knowing that Qatar is going to shoot at him.
Of course. He stumbles outwards, falling.
He's still barely conscious, right?
Yeah, barely conscious, just falling to his knees and attempting to crawl away before suddenly.
Yes.
Oh, this is perfect.
That's a perfect shockwave too.
In looting Echo Team's weapons, Chauncey gains Grimson's Karambit. However, they do not find the viral sample that was stolen. The survivors then continue on to City Hall in search of Katara's parents. They find the front gates locked, but some of them manage to climb it, while others simply walk around the block to an alternative entrance. The party explores a few of the office buildings, clearing them of the monsters within. Among these is the office of Mayor Michael Warren himself, which they find full of zombies. Chauncey manages to sneak past them and into the main office, where he retrieves a key and reads Mayor Warren's journal. They also collect 2 keycards that seem to be part of a set themed after the tale of Icarus. The survivors find a safe room in City Hall and sleep there overnight. It's an uneasy rest for most, as they hear umbrella helicopters flying overhead. Ali peeks outside and witnesses the last of the police force getting decimated at their final stand several blocks away. But for Emil, this night is met with one more dream. You fall as if sinking into water for a while, but this time your feet touch down on the soft dirt instead of the hard facility floors that you're expecting. Looking around, you see tall pine trees and foliage. You look to be in a forest of some kind. The sky above you is that of night, but the objects at ground level look completely illuminated. Directly ahead of you is something of a clearing. And in that clearing, you see a grassy lawn leading up to a single-story ranch-style house. It's quiet, peaceful, serene. You recognize this as your home back in Minnesota pretty immediately. And then directly behind you is a square opening just sitting completely out of place in the middle of the forest. If you were to look on either side of the opening, you would see that it is two-dimensional. A square with nothing behind it, and yet when you look at it from the front head on, it has depth. You can see into it. Inside is a long hallway that goes on infinitely, fading into darkness. It's the same hall from Operation Greenhouse, the facility that you've been revisiting every night for the past few nights. You hear distant screams and gunfire echoing out of the depths of the darkness. And in front of that hallway stands two familiar comrades, Scott Muller and Edward Lopez. Both of them stand guard, armed and armored from head to toe. Scott is, a fair-skinned but well-built fellow of average height and stature. He grips his assault rifle with one of his gloved hands and extends the other out to you. And he simply says, "It's time to come home, Emil."
Look back at the house. Look down through the hallway. And I take his hand.
Scott and Edward kind of draw their own arms as they usher you forward and trail in behind you in a kind of clearing pattern. You walk and walk and walk, headed deeper into the darkness with each step. The sound of gunfire grows clearer and clearer until eventually there's a moment of silence. The way you entered is no longer in sight if you look behind you. All around you is darkness. Then suddenly, a spotlight shines down around an armored man in front of you. He looks to be a fellow soldier with his chin kind of down. You're unable to see his eyes, but after a moment, he looks up, making eye contact with you. You recognize this man as Jack Carmine. His flesh is rotted and decayed, but it's definitely him. And before you know it, you're gripping a familiar M1911 in your hand. The slide has the same names of every person in this hall except for Carmine engraved on it. And after another moment, you see a familiar little girl in a red jacket entering into the spotlight from one side. This zombified relic of Carmine immediately looks over to her and begins shambling in her direction, arms outstretched.
I'm going to rush and try to pick up the girl in the red coat and shove the zombified Carmine away.
Okay, you grab Arklay and kind of lift her up off of her feet and just keep Carmine at arm's length. He stumbles backwards as you give him a good shove, but he just immediately gets right back into it and just starts shambling in your direction once again. Lopez kind of nods over to you and kind of lowers his arms and just says, "Time to get to work, Emil."
I'm constantly working. I'm gonna set down Arklay behind me and just with one hand holding her back, look at Jack and just "Damn it, Jack," and then shoot him in the head.
The zombified Carmine, his head kicks back and he falls to the ground. Immediately afterwards, you're left alone, just you and Arklay in the middle of this spotlight. Muller kind of saunters up to you and puts a hand on your shoulder. He says, "Welcome home, Emil." And as his hand is on your shoulder, you see spots of white begin appearing in the veil of black around you. Arklay and the men at your side disappear as the darkness fades into light. You find yourself floating endlessly in a void of brightness. And in this moment, you finally feel at peace. On September 28th, the party rises early in the morning and continues on to the administration building, where they discover Katara's parents, David and Alicia Oswald, hiding in one of the rooms. Learning that they are indeed waiting for the evac chopper to arrive at dusk, Ali, Chauncey, and Emil take to the streets for some last-minute errands. Chauncey finds that his Hummer, which had been parked near the site of the RPD's last stand, took some bullet holes in the tank and could no longer hold any fuel. In a somber goodbye, Chauncey lights the leaked fuel and gives his faithful Hummer a Viking funeral. Shortly thereafter, the survivors commandeer an armored truck. They break into a Stagla gas station and procure some fuel, which they load into the armored vehicle. Chauncey drives the truck into Uptown, where they encounter some of Raccoon City's criminal element in the form of the Fox Street Gang. They first notice a man by the name of Jay, who offers to bring them somewhere they can buy guns. However, Chauncey takes Jay hostage at gunpoint and forces him to escort the party there. Upon arrival, they meet Tyrone, the leader of the Fox Street Gang. Discovering that these thugs are selling a Colt Python that once belonged to him, Chauncey immediately slits Jay's throat and engages the entire gang in a firefight. With the party's superior firepower, training, and experience, the three of them slaughter the thugs before looting their goods, then make their way back to City Hall. Allie, Chauncey, and Emil drive back to City Hall. Emil catches sight of Artemis stalking them from the rooftops in the rearview mirror. Meanwhile, waiting back at the administration building, Katara catches up with her parents. Her father, David, notices that something is off about her, at which point she reveals that she has infected herself with the modified T-virus.
Takes her arm and just kind of like reveals the area where she got the shot.
Dang it, Katara. Listen, you're brilliant, Katara. The world needs you. It needs your mind. You can't be going around taking these kinds of risks with your own body.
I know. It's risky, yes, but you think about the breakthroughs. Just everything that can happen. There was no other way to test this.
The rest of the party soon reconvenes at the administration building, bringing with them supplies they'd scavenged outside. They get to the rooftop and keep watch as they wait the rest of the day. Come nightfall, the survivors gather on the roof as they hear the helicopter closing in. However, at that point, they are confronted by Artemis. The party battles the creature on the rooftop, dealing and taking great damage, but being sustained by Emil's healing. In the midst of the battle, the army helicopter arrives and begins circling overhead.
Leave them alone, you filthy pooch!
The soldier leans out the side door and rains assault rifle fire down on Artemis. After some more combat, Chauncey rushes it with his shotgun and delivers the final crippling shots.
Chauncey, how do you want to do this?
Oh yeah! I just run out and stick it right into his rib cage and just start lighting him off. Like, put down my friend!
So you stick it, there's that, and there are noticeable gashes and wounds across its body as it sustained heavy damage throughout this fight. You find one of those openings with some bit of tattered flesh decaying across its rib cage. You stick your barrel right into that opening and just like unload 4 rounds with your shotgun, just and just out of the other side of it, an equally, if not worse, damaging hole exits from a wound on the other side as it just lets out this loud yap. Allie just like collapses out of its mouth and lands prone there.
The soldier on the chopper then throws a rocket launcher down onto the rooftop. Katara takes the rocket launcher and destroys the monster once and for all.
How would you like to do this as you deliver the eviscerating blow?
Anything you say to a dog, stay down. Stay down.
So you can all practically see in slow motion as the rocket streaks across the top of this rooftop heading for this pooch, which is now riding itself upwards with as much strength as it can muster. That rocket streaks across the roof, leaving this hot trail of flame and smoke behind it. You catch one last look of those glowing red beads in its eyes before the rocket impacts against its chest, almost embedding itself for a moment before you see this massive explosion of flames and shrapnel and smoke just and this huge cacophonous noise deafens all of you for a moment as that explosion radiates outwards, sending chunks of flesh flying out in every direction, most of which falls off of the rooftop as well. As the dust settles and the smoke clears, what is left of Artemis is this massive carcass. It is largely gone. Its head and much of its upper torso and its 2 front legs, disconnected because of that, are just missing.
After defeating Artemis, the army helicopter touches down and extracts the party with Katara's parents. On board, they find that the soldier helping them was Corporal Justin Scalvo, who they met in Umbrella's labs. The helicopter brings them to the military camp outside the city limits. There, they meet the hard-nosed man in charge, Colonel Jonah Levingham.
Your mission was only to extract the VIPs, Corporal. And he kind of stands upright and he's like, and I did, sir. These civilians were at the evac point defending the VIPs. We couldn't just leave them behind. Sir, your conscience is commended, but you're taking some serious liberties with security. We've already shown you leniency after your last trip. Kind of looks the rest of you over with this penetrating drill sergeant-like gaze, and he's like, we'll discuss disciplinary measures later, Corporal Scalvo. You're dismissed. And Scalvo just is,
nods, yes sir, and walks off. The survivors' clothes and gear are confiscated, and they each have their blood drawn as they are brought through a lengthy decontamination process. They are then given shelter in a tent set up for refugees. There they find Arklay and Kevin, who escaped the city together with Scalvo. Emil brings Arklay up to date with what has happened, especially regarding what they discovered about her father. Afterwards, Colonel Levingham confronts the party once again with further information. I'm sure you've been explained plenty of details, but in case it wasn't clear, we will be returning your items to you by tomorrow after they've been thoroughly decontaminated. But there are exceptions as well. We will not be returning your firearms. Those will be confiscated by the U.S. government.
That's fine.
What the hell? Trying to get robbed by all I have, bro.
Unless there are any that you own legally, we are not able to return those to you. And I understand the necessity for having such arms in the situation that you are in. But you will not be able to keep these unless you are properly licensed to carry them. And seeing the kind of weapons that some of you had, they don't take it you're licensed to carry them.
You'd be surprised.
Technically, I'm licensed to carry anything. I'm a police officer.
I'm not sure if you heard, but the RPD isn't exactly in service anymore.
So, like, I can't do anything to, like, get a license for that grenade launcher?
Just sort of, at this point, he's kind of, like, stood toe-to-toe with Chauncey and just sort of staring you down. Is that understood, soldier boy?
We'll go through the processes.
And at this point, you hear this kind of voice off to the side just yell, I don't think so. And Levingham kind of looks over to the side and is like, excuse me? And you see this woman over there in her late 20s, looks to be wearing business attire, which she looks hilariously out of place in as her bulky physique kind of fills the suit out to it seems. She has a slightly tan complexion and jet black hair tied into a bun on the back of her head. And she's just like, nah, you're gonna let them walk with all their weapons. And he's like, and who are you? Special Agent Clancy with the NSA. I'm here on direct orders from the Pentagon.
Oh, yeah!
We're going to want to let these people leave with their belongings.
Can I just walk over and give a high five? What's up, sis?
I'll say, Chauncey, make a persuasion check with advantage from her. Wow. So Levingham, for the first time in your brief time knowing him, you see a little bit of trepidation in his eyes. Like Emil, with your keen insight, would recognize this as a moment of faltering, but he immediately rights himself and keeps his upright posture. Well, Agent Clancy, I'm afraid even the Pentagon has to abide by the rules, but I'll see what I can do if that's what you're threatening. And she's just like, oh, no threats going on here. We're all amicable. I'm here to do a job. Gives a sly sort of look. And he just grimaces and walks away. Oh, fancy seeing you here. You don't write, you don't call. Have to be called out on assignment to get a look at you.
I look down. I look back up at her. I was like, you know me. I go where the wind takes me. You stuck with your job. I had to try to find something new.
I mean, NSA isn't something new. I mean, come on. I'm moving up in the world.
You're moving up, but you're staying with the government. I didn't, kind of.
Well,
I guess.
Not anymore. You're not, bro.
Yeah. I needed to settle down, and you wanted to keep going with your career.
Yeah. Well, suit yourself. Chauncey's sister Cambria uses her NSA resources to allow the party to leave with most of their gear. However, they learn that the military scientists have been regularly drawing Arklay's blood for testing. The head scientist, Dr. Noelle Eleanor, is also intent on permanently detaining Arklay, citing her right to do so by the fact that she has no legal guardian. But Chauncey intervenes, and in a landmark moment, formally adopts Arklay in order to subvert this attempt. Following these events, the survivors leave Raccoon City on a bus. They later discover that Nuria, Sean, and Elza were the only members of the university group to survive and escape the city. All the others were killed by the tyrant they left behind. Several days later, they each find out by watching the news that the city, which many of them had once called home, has been sterilized by a nuclear missile strike. Raccoon City is no more. And that concludes the story of the Raccoon City incident.